Something that may be among your New Year's resolutions, healthier eating. Our next guest has some tips that may help you with that goal. Processed foods have been linked to diabetes, obesity, and increased cognitive decline. And new research shows that highly processed foods can be as addictive as smoking and alcohol. Just think about that. Keri Glassman is a nutritionist and dietitian. Keri, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
It's so great to be here. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, too. So we talk about processed foods a lot. It's a term that's thrown around, but what exactly is a processed food and how can people identify it?
Okay, so most of the foods that we're eating that we find in the grocery store, most of them are processed to some extent. So we all have to depend on processed foods to a certain extent. What we're really concerned about here, and what this study was talking about, was ultra or highly processed foods. So highly processed foods have had multiple stages of processing. They have the addition usually of unhealthy fats, sodium, and sugar, which can be found in multiple forms. And they also usually have the addition of other unhealthy chemicals like flavorings and dyes. And those
Keri,
are the types of foods that we really need to be concerned about.
So the question I have is, why are they so addictive? And some may ask, tasty, it's delicious. Yeah.
Right. Well, food manufacturers are smart and they actually engineer these foods to be highly palatable, to make us want to eat more. And the reason that these foods are so addictive and the reason we can't stop eating them is because of that combination of unhealthy fats, sodium, and all forms of sugar. And it's that really unnatural high dose of refined carbohydrates mixed with unhealthy fats that leads to them being so addictive for many, many people.
The other thing, Keri, though, is, and you want people to break the habit of eating these processed foods, but oftentimes people don't have a choice. If you live in an area of the country where you don't have access to fresh produce or fresh groceries, it becomes really, really hard to implement some of these steps. So what can people do who are looking to break those habits?
You're absolutely right. It is really difficult, which is why, by the way, it is important to be even just aware of this information so you know that foods are made to do this to us, so we can at least be aware. Then what I always like to tell people to do is to be aware of your triggers and find some controls for those triggers. So if you know that you have the habit of coming home every night and then you go right to your kitchen and you grab that bag of chips, change that behavior. And I'm not saying it's easy, but becoming aware of your triggers, you can change that behavior. Maybe you go directly to your bedroom and you change your clothes first. Then you can come up with some substitutes. Things like, instead of those chips, maybe on the weekend you prepare some sliced sweet potatoes and you bake them and you add your own little bit of salt instead of having those bags of chips. And then when you're out, because you're right, it is hard when you're out. So what I always tell people to do is be really intentional with your choices. So when you're home, go for those whole real foods as much as possible so that when you're out and you do need to make a choice on the run, you still want to make the best choice possible. And there are some better choices now. Even some drugstores have yogurts and have pieces of fruit. So make the best choice you can when you're out and be intentional with your choices when you're home, and you can do better.
So, Keri, I have a 1-year-old and I'm trying to teach her good eating habits. She's obsessed with bread. She's always asking for bread. Pan in Espanol. Yeah, she goes, pa, to get pan bread. And Vlad, I know you're going to be thinking about this too. What is your advice for parents trying to build good eating habits for their kids, especially when there's so much other stuff around that they would really enjoy eating?
Great question. And I never like parents to stress out about this. This is the last thing we want to do, is to be stressed about it. We want to control what we can in the home and don't stress about what kids are exposed to out of the home too much. So in the home, you've heard this before, I'm sure, but you want to role model. You want to eat those fruits and vegetables and whole grains at home. You want to provide a variety of healthy, whole foods at home so that your kids become used to eating those foods. They learn to like those types of foods versus the other foods that are higher in sugar and fat. And also, one thing I always tell parents, your job is to control the food that you present to children, the food that you put on the table. It is their job to control how much they eat. So don't try to control how much they eat. Try to provide the best options you can.
That is tough, Adriana. In the words of Liam Neeson in Taken, good luck. Keri Glassman, thank you so much. We appreciate you.